Okay, well, welcome everyone. This is our third podcast or third interview as part of the Melbourne Investing Club, which is a group that was formed basically back in COVID, actually, with a group of chartered financial analysts in Melbourne. We were missing the regular catch-ups that used to occur pre the pre the virus, and we started meeting on a Saturday afternoon. And it's really taken off since then. It's grown to over 300 members now, mainly students and young professionals who are undertaking the exams or about to undertake the exams. So tonight we've got a very special interview indeed. Hopefully this is the first stage. We'll interview our guest, and then in the future we'll be able to have a town hall type Q&A with him. So I'll introduce our guest. So today we're very honoured to have Sam Walsh AO join us. Sam grew up in Melbourne in the seaside suburb of Brighton. Due to family circumstances, he was thrown into a leadership role at a young age. And really, this set the scene for something that occurred throughout his business career. Sam has said that one way or another, throughout his life, when he's joined a group, eventually he's ended up leading it. He went on to study at Melbourne University and then Kettering University in Flint, Michigan. From there, Sam went on to have a highly distinguished business career. Firstly, and very appropriately given his studies in Flint in the automotive industry at General Motors and Nissan, before going on to join Rio Tinto in 1991, which would prove to be the beginning of a hugely influential period of service. Significantly, Sam led the powerhouse iron ore division from 2004 to 2013, before being tapped to lead the Rio Tinto group at a time when the business was well out of favour with investors due to a lack of focus and lack of cost control. Sam, in his first year, turned a $3 billion loss into a $4 billion profit. His investor speeches were always must listens. I recall that he used to say he was empowering his team globally to think like owners and the amazing impacts that had throughout the business. When Sam finished up at Rio Tinto, he had left an indelible mark on the company and on the Australian mining sector. His contribution was marked by the award of the General Order of Australia in 2010 and in November 2002, in recognition of his outstanding contributions to the promotion of relations between Japan and Australia, was awarded the Order of the Rising Sun. Sam, it's truly an honour to have you join me today.
It's my pleasure.
Okay, well, we've got some questions that we're going to tick through here, but before we do that, we'll do a couple of quick fire ones. So Sam hasn't had any notice on these, but favourite business trip destination?
I'd have to say London. I've
London.
made 187 trips to London, and I still seriously enjoy it. I mean, obviously important for Rio Tinto, it's headquarters, but when I was at Rio, a FTSE 20 company, I was one of 20. Fantastic. The contacts, the networks, unbelievable.
Okay, favourite opera or show?
La Boheme, a
Um,
Puccini opera. I it's everybody's favourite, but it's mine as well. My father used to play it on the radiogram at home.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, in your Perth, native Perth, which is a town you're very proud of, I know, what would be your favourite restaurant or cafe?
Yeah, I think a restaurant called Six Head. It's a steak restaurant. It's a relatively new restaurant on Elizabeth Quay and does a fantastic high fillet steak.
Okay, wonderful. Now we'll go into a little bit of trivia here, but the last one, what was your favourite souvenir that you used to pick up on all your work trips?
Well, I suspect you know the answer, but I started collecting milk jugs, creamers, a
Mm.
long, long time ago. I love antiques, and we've got a house not full of antiques, but it's got a lot of antiques. But when you're traveling, you can't carry a dining room table sort of in your luggage, but a
Mm.
milk jug you could slip into your briefcase. So I've got probably 400 milk jugs. The earliest is 500 BC, before Christ,
Yeah.
and I've got a large collection around 1750, which is
Mm.
when the technology transferred from China to Europe.
Mm.
Funny, I had a friend sort of say, "No, Sam, the technology didn't transfer from China, transferred from the Middle East." My response was, so that's why we call porcelain China, because the technology came from the Middle East. He was wrong, I was right.
Fantastic. There's a very good antique shop. I'm based in Camberwell. There's a very good antique store in Maylene Road, Canterbury. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of that one, but it's a cracker.
Well, I usually drop in on High Street in Malvern.
Okay.
There's quite a few down there.
Okay, well, we'll get into some business questions because I know this is what the members will be wanting. But so we'll start with your business career, and you built outstanding careers in three major international corporations: General Motors, Nissan, Rio Tinto. Why do you feel you were so successful in being able to contribute for a long period, survive for a long period, and progress through the corporate hierarchy, so to speak?
I think the answer, a very, very quick answer is adding value. Whatever I did, I made sure that I physically added value to whatever I was doing. I mean, generally people sort of think, oh, well, I'll do what my neighbour does. He's got a similar job as me, and I won't sort of go out beyond that. You've actually got to go beyond. You've got to stretch yourself, and you've got to be focused in such a way that people can see that, hey, you're a mover and shaker, and you make things happen. and
Mm,
and that I think is why I progressed relatively quickly through my career.
mm,
Uh, yes, the two job changes from GM to Nissan, that was a stepping stone. It
mm,
moved me into an area that I didn't have. I did a Bachelor of Commerce at Melbourne University. I
mm,
ended up as chief engineer of Nissan and director of supply. Very, very, very different and stretching. Um, And after a year, I ran the lot. I ran all of the manufacturing.
mm,
So I mean that to me is critically important for anybody sort of starting out in business.
mm.
That they throw away, I guess, the make do sort of mentality, and they just focus on adding value.
Yeah. The It sort of cuts to another point, which is if you when you end up in a busy role, and obviously the CEO is the hot seat. You've got a lot of things to stay across. And as you progress up, you obviously pick up more things to stay across. Did you have any sort of tips or any methods you used to be across a lot of detail and be across a lot of different businesses?
Yeah, before I went to London. So as you say, I'd been running iron ore for 13 years, and sort of, quite frankly, I could have done it in my sleep.
Mm,
I got involved in a whole range of things. I became president of the Boy Scouts.
mm,
I was a Queen Scout going through Scouts. Lay canon at the cathedral. I'm a church person. Theatre. I was chair of the State Theatre in Western Australia. I was chair of the Australian Business Arts Foundation. I started the Chamber of the Arts. So,
mm,
I was doing sort of, a dozen other things apart from a job. It
mm,
wasn't until I became CEO of Rio Tinto, it actually dawned on me that all this was preparation
mm,
for the role as because when you're CEO, you got to juggle sort of 10,000 balls at the one time. and you've got to learn to sort of focus on issues. I mean, people jokingly say that a CEO's attention span is about 10 minutes.
mm,
It is a joke, but it's probably nearer to the truth because you want to move on. You want to move on to, the next issue, the next challenge, or whatever. The second thing is, you've got to have good people.
yeah,
You've got to have, I mean, better than you,
mm,
really seriously bright, experienced people, and then you can delegate to them because that's when you're a CEO of a company. That's exactly what you've got to do. When
mm,
when I was running iron ore, I'd have a catastrophe a week. There'd be a weather event or an industrial event or a customer event or there'd be something that happened. When I took over as CEO of Rio Tinto, there was a catastrophe a day, and you've got to learn how to handle that. You've got to learn how to pull the relevant people together, talk through the issue, work out what the strategy and solution is, then let them do it and move on. Now, of course,
mm,
if it's a major event where you've got to focus the media and ring the Prime Minister or whatever, yeah, that's my bailiwick. But if it's an everyday catastrophe, then you've got to learn how to delegate it.
mm,
Firefighting is no good for a CEO. And in fact, it's no good for senior management. Senior
mm,
management's role is strategic.
mm,
It's making a difference. It's looking at where are we going to be 10 years from now, rather than sort of getting the joy out of putting out a fire that a relatively junior person in the organisation could have actually done.
mm, mm. The one of the other aspects that I think is interesting uh, with the news, I was struck by a comment someone made about why we have so much volatility in the world, and our CEO recently said, "Well, the news cycle is a big part of this now.
Mm,
Like it might have been in the past." People would only have seen public figures, once a quarter or something, whereas now, take Anthony Albanese, he'll be on, that you'll hear from him multiple times a day through different
mm,
media.
mm.
So, and it's true in business, isn't it? What about that aspect of managing the media? Did you train for that? Is that something that you prepared for before becoming CEO?
Yes, yes, you do. I mean, sort of through your career, you go through various sort of media training. But of course, the CEO, you've got an external affairs department.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people were in that group, maybe 20, 25. And
Mm,
that's because Rio Tinto operated in 35 countries. And those people are on top of sort of what is going on. You're always better to lead from the front foot. You're
mm,
always better to actually call the shot, set the scene, rather than have others do that. And I'm
mm,
talking about sort of media or what have you. But yeah, the media cycle is very, very quick. Yeah, I can remember as CEO, we had a derailment on the rail up in the Pilbara.
mm,
We picked it up on the media before the management reported it to us through the official sort of communication. That's how quick uh,
mm,
things get out, and you've got to be capable of responding to it.
mm, mm, mm. It's certainly, I think, a very major part nowadays of business. And you can see, you take the news at the moment with Qantas and the data leak there,
Mm.
and it's obvious because it's good media. There's people must read the business news, I think, because something where it's a high profile company like Qantas or Rio Tinto in your case, the business media will seek to make something of it, and I guess you've got to manage that.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, and that's why I say that you've got to have the system set up so
Mm,
that you're almost a jump ahead of what's going on. I
mm,
mean, remember, we see all the Qantas focus and what have you, but I mean,
mm,
I can't remember the lead time that they had before that all went public, but
mm,
I suspect it was at least a week. So, the
mm,
Qantas management had a week to sort of figure out
mm,
how they were going to. answer
mm,
and respond. You don't, or a derailment up in the Pilbara, yeah, you don't have
no.
to wing. But something like that, you can actually
Mm,
control the story. And I think that, I mean, disastrous news, but I think that they've handled it,
mm,
pretty well.
mm. The another aspect of leadership and being a CEO, I guess, of a major business is you really are the leader for so many people. Um, I recall when I was back in New Zealand, I was working for one of the large government departments,
Mm.
and the CEO used to send around an email every Monday morning, and it delved into what they had been up to at the weekend. And someone jokingly sent back an email saying someone keeps emailing me every week telling me what they did at the weekend. but but it's hard, isn't it? Because you've got to inspire a lot of people. So what was your sort of, in Rio Tinto's case, you had people all over the world. How did you seek to influence their behaviours in an authentic way and in a way that actually they bought into?
Yeah, you touched on it in your introduction when I sort of very openly said to our staff that I wanted people to operate as if they were owners, not managers. Owners do actually do things differently.
Mm,
And over 30% of Rio Tinto employees, when I was CEO, had shares in the company. So they were owners.
mm,
I said that I want you to spend money as if it's your own money. And well, that's pretty trite. And, how does that work? It actually did work because I'd visit remote sites and people would say, look, I had a project for $10,000 to do this or that. If it was my money, I wouldn't do it. So I didn't.
mm, mm,
That's extremely powerful in terms of giving people the levers so that they can actually, well, add value. In relation to safety, I came up with a very simple statement. If it's not safe, don't do it. I mean, incredibly, straightforward. You are empowered not to do it if you feel that it's unsafe.
mm,
That's really, really important. I mean, the other side of that, and the external affairs people didn't like me for saying this, but I'd say that mining is dangerous. And if you don't follow the rules, the procedures, the standards, it is dangerous. You know, seriously heavy equipment, electricity, heat,
mm,
loads. I mean, you wherever you look, there's a potential incident. And quite frankly, there's a lot of industry like that,
mm,
where if you don't follow the systems, suddenly driving your car,
mm,
you don't follow the speed limit,
mm,
sooner or later, something's going
mm,
to happen.
mm,
And you can say, oh, well, not to me because, I'm smart. Well, yeah, there's the other person driving the other car that doesn't
mm.
realise you're coming down at 100 miles an hour.
Do you think? I think one other thing I notice is people in business sometimes they like it when the leader is up front and and isn't always drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak. Some CEOs I notice are very much everything's positive. Whereas when you came in, and maybe this was a good thing, you
Hmm.
were in a position where you could say, well, things aren't
Yeah.
all rosy here.
Yeah, yeah, no. In a way, I was fortunate. I had a burning
Mm,
platform,
mm,
and the burning platform was very, very obvious. But I mean, you need to communicate. I mean,
mm,
at Rio Tinto Iron Ore, every employee had an incentive,
mm,
a, a bonus, but we didn't tell them how the business was going. Now, funnily enough, the guy driving the shiploader at the port, he knew exactly how the business was going because he saw the iron ore going on ships. But we didn't tell them. And when I went to the accountants and said, well, hey, we've got to tell people how the business is going. Oh, no, we can't. Insider trading, we can't do that. I said, I think we've got to trust our employees. I mean, yes, we need to make sure they understand about insider trading, but we've got to trust them and we've got to
mm,
provide feedback to them. sometimes we get caught up in our own sort of, I don't know, rules or
Mm,
beliefs or whatever. And it's also important that you communicate, you engage,
mm,
you actually make people like people are seriously proud of the business. They
yeah.
want it to succeed, and you've got to give them the information and data and what have you, so
Mm,
that they can see how they can add value. They can see how they can make a difference.
mm. The when we sort of look ahead and we think about, as you say, the iron ore business was such a you were leading that during such a pivotal time, and it was such a wealth creating time for Australia. If we sort of look ahead now and we think about Australia's relationship with China, it's very highly topical at the moment, of course. Even Marco Rubio recently said that Asia is where many of the success stories of the 21st century are going to be written. Are you optimistic about Australia's position still, as much as you were back when you were leading Rio? And do you sort of foresee longevity in these trade routes that have made us so wealthy here?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that there'll be issues, and we've seen issues with China, with barley and wine and coal and a raft of other things. So, I mean, we, the government needs to be careful with that relationship. Fortunately, with iron ore, there is no substitute. Australia's the largest producer of iron ore in the world, and the Chinese actually need it. Now, there are a couple of sort of issues, headwinds that are coming along. One is climate change and the need for the Chinese steel mills to improve the efficiency of their operations, hence the grade of the ore that they're using. So there is a critical issue there for the Australian producers to find ways of improving the grade of the ore.
Mm,
It means in a blast furnace that you're not producing as much slag, you're not wasting as much energy, and it's more efficient. You also see that companies like Rio Tinto and BHP are focused on green steel, and they've got a pilot project underway. Second headwind is potentially the Guinean project, the Simandou project, where a
mm,
very high grade ore is going to be brought on there. They're saying from November this year. That'll
mm,
have an impact on supply and demand. It
mm,
is a commodity after all, and it'll have an impact on price.
mm,
Fortunately, Mike Henry made some comments a little while ago that said that the floor for iron ore is really the cost of producing iron ore in China. And he said that that cost is between $80 to $90 a tonne. Um, the iron ore producers, their cost of production is way below $80 to $90 a tonne. So
yeah.
it'll still be a very profitable business. And
Mm,
and as the world develops, and it's China's important, but India and Africa and a range of other countries are developing. There is no substitute for steel. You need the steel for buildings, for bridges, for cars, refrigerators, you name it. So,
mm,
I think that iron ore demand, with the two headwinds I mentioned, will
mm,
remain relatively strong.
mm. What about in terms of sustainability more generally? And it's another major business topic, isn't it? In terms
Yes,
of uh, do we sort of look to electrify everything,
yes.
or is there sort of a future for the thermal fuels? What do you think? What do you sort of think is is the right approach for companies like Rio Tinto or the major mining businesses to go down the route of opening up green energy divisions, or is it to look to reduce the carbon intensity of their existing businesses, or what do you sort of think is the best
Yeah,
strategy?
it's a bit hard to reduce the energy usage
Mm,
of existing operations. But if you take Rio Tinto, for example, and I retired 9 years ago, so I'm not right up to speed, but one of the things that they're working on, apart from renewables, wind
mm,
and solar power, is biofuel.
mm,
If I step back from that, I'm a great believer in hydrogen,
mm,
um, or ammonia,
mm,
and I think that that has a huge opportunity in
mm,
terms of being a clean energy source. In Tokyo, there's 150 fueling stations for hydrogen vehicles. Toyota, Subaru. I mean, there's a range of the car producers have already got hydrogen cars running around uh,
mm,
in Tokyo. So, I mean, there's a huge opportunity there.
mm,
Um, I, planes are a huge source of emissions, and renewable aviation fuel. I mean, that's an important issue for them in terms of reducing their emissions. I'm chair of the Perth Mint here.
mm,
We refine around 80% of Australia's gold. Our biggest emissions are not our refining processes, it's
mm,
actually the aeroplanes that take the gold to our customers. So, that's a huge issue for us in terms of
mm,
working with the airlines on reducing their emissions.
mm, mm. The Yeah, I think the hydrogen is a great opportunity. It's something close to my heart, and but it is very competitive. As you say, iron ore, we've got a natural advantage, whereas in thing like hydrogen,
Hmm.
the India and the Middle East, and we really need to accept that we have to put our best foot forward to ensure that we maintain our position there.
Yeah, look, I think that's fine. I mean, if you look at our oils now,
Mm,
petrol and whatever, I mean that's coming in from overseas. So
mm,
it wouldn't be that different if the ammonia was coming in from overseas.
mm,
Notwithstanding the fact that there are a number of people working on hydrogen facilities here in this country. There'll just be a big issue as to whether it's blue hydrogen or green hydrogen.
mm,
When you go to fill up your car, you're overjoyed you're putting hydrogen in it. Are you overly stressed as to whether it's green or blue? I don't know.
mm.
In Japan, there's actually yellow hydrogen, and that's its energy source for that is nuclear. Of course, we don't have that here.
No. The So just changing tack a little bit now, your support for the arts, as you've mentioned, has been immense throughout your career, with a particular focus on Perth. And as you said, that in a way, having all these roles was obviously a passion, but also a good preparation for the CEO role.
Hmm.
Do you sort of believe passionately that the thriving arts and culture scene is essential for Australia? And um, how do we sort of get the next generation interested?
Yeah, look, I mean, I've always been involved in the arts, and when I was in London after my first year as CEO, I joined the board of the Royal Opera House and Ballet. Fantastic,
Mm,
seriously classy. I
mm,
came back from London and I joined the Australia Council for the Arts, which is now very aptly named Creative Australia.
mm,
And I believe that the arts force you to use a different part of your brain. And
mm,
I think that sort of creativity, I think business people actually physically need. You
mm,
need to have people around you who think differently. I mean, we're finally getting it in terms of the workplace balance, in terms of females and males,
mm,
recognizing the value that females can add and recognize that they have a very different way of looking at things, and businesses can gain from that.
mm,
Um, to me, having a vibrant city, town, whatever, is absolutely critical. It's critical for attracting talent.
mm,
It's critical for the people there so that that they enjoy their lifestyle, and it's important for sort of bringing in expats and what have you, that you need to supplement the talent or research or whatever in your business. So, I mean, the arts to me, apart from being enjoyable, is something that I see seriously important. As I mean, it's all about Australia's culture.
mm,
If you want to step back and say, well, who are we and how are we different and whatever? Well, it's actually the arts that help us define it. It's the theatre. I mean, I'm chair of a small theatre company, a touring theatre company, and we did the story of Albert Facey, Fortunate Life, and I mean, it's just an incredible story about Australia and an Australian, and how they how he and his sort of impetus changed the world around him. A number of other, 21 Hearts, the story of the nurses who were massacred in Indonesia during Second World War. We're taking it to the Australian War Memorial, in
mm,
fact, next week. And it'll be the first show that actually will be using the new theatre there. But again,
mm,
it's part of our culture. When you go to the War Memorial, they've actually got Vivian Bullwinkle's
mm,
nurse's outfit, and you can see the bullet hole where she was shot as part. Well, she wasn't massacred, but she was shot.
mm,
So I mean, it's the arts and is a window. It opens your eyes to what the world is doing around us, and that's important.
mm. The you must be very proud of Perth. I remember uh, you you know you were a great encourager of corporates to contribute to the arts in Perth and to really change. As Perth is growing, to really keep up with its business growth in the arts and the sports sector as well. You must be very proud of the stadium there and the events that that's attracting.
Yeah, no, look, I am, and I mean, it's important that businesses support the community in which they're involved. And I'm not just talking about Perth. I'm talking about the country regions as well, the Pilbara, the Kimberley, the Southwest. I mean, all of that is important in terms of improving the standard of living and improving the vibrancy in the community where people live. I was, I guess, at the forefront of looking at fly in, fly out,
Mm,
and bringing fly in, fly out of the regions. Traditionally, the myth was it's got to be out of a capital city. That's the only way it'll work. But during my time running iron ore, we flew in, fly out of Broome, out of Geraldton, out
mm,
of Busselton, out of Albany. When we went down to Albany, Esperance said, "Hey, what about us?"
mm,
It actually it was wonderful because you know farmers do it tough, and to the extent that they want to, fly in fly out actually provides them a cash flow that
mm,
they wouldn't actually have during sort of poor crop time. Out of
mm,
Broome, we brought young Aboriginals. I went up and met with the elders.
mm,
And I was a little bit sort of anxious about it. And, no, this is fantastic. They will get a job. They'll learn skills that they wouldn't otherwise learn.
mm,
And coincidentally, sort of 9 years later, I went up there with my Royal Flying Doctor Service hat on. I'm chair of the RFTS.
mm,
And I met with some of the elders, and I said, "Well, how did it go? And what do you think of it?" "Oh, it's fantastic. It's good.
mm,
It's really, providing the skills and opportunity and what have you, and it's working."
mm,
So, I mean, things like that where you can help remote communities is important. I
mm,
mentioned Royal Flying Doctor Service. I mean,
mm.
there's not a better example of working to improve the health, improve the standard of living
Yeah.
of people living in remote and regional Australia. I was going to say Western Australia, but Australia.
Mm,
And as a businessman, you can make a difference. We
mm,
now have three jets.
mm,
Uh, Previously, we had turboprops, and they took twice as long, to travel the long distances.
mm,
We've got two helicopters here in Perth. No other RFTS division around Australia has got helicopters. But I mean, if you
mm.
think about it, it just makes logical sense.
Yeah.
If you can pick up point to point, pick up from a road accident and take the person straight to the roof of the Fiona Stanley or Royal Perth Hospital, how much better is that than
mm,
waiting, to drive somebody to an airport and then driving through to Jandakot and then hopping in an
mm,
ambulance. I
mm,
mean, it's just absolutely logical and rational.
mm,
But
mm,
you actually need, I've got a seriously good board.
mm,
I followed my own advice in terms of having people smarter than me on the board,
mm,
and they could see the advantage. I mean,
mm,
Kalgoorlie, we're looking at setting up a GP clinic there. We,
mm,
we don't run GP clinics, but they need doctors. They're short of doctors.
mm,
And we'll set up a clinic there, and we'll have doctors, and okay, it'll be under the badge and the logo of RFDS, and I'm hoping that that'll be an attraction.
mm,
But it'll help the community, and
mm,
that's a critical thing.
mm. Now, I see you've mentioned the Royal Flying Doctors, the Perth Mint, the Anglican Diocese of Perth. Now, you're chairman of all these organisations and
Mm.
you're on the board of a number of other ones. How have you found the transition from executive roles to governance roles generally? Do you find it as rewarding?
That's a good question. I mean, being in charge and doing it yourself, you can't beat that,
Yeah.
and that gives you a lot of satisfaction. And as a non-executive director, whether you're chair or whether you're a NED, I mean, you're there to influence. You're there to sort of add value and use your experience and your skills and what have you. Strategy is a critical role for a director, and that's where a director can add a lot of value. Stretching the organisation and stretching the thinking. Um, Governance, compliance, they're important. Monitoring how the business is going, supporting the CEO, supporting the management, all of those are important. I guess for me, I mean, I'm not on the board roles for money. I don't need the money.
Mm.
Well, just don't tell them that. But I'm there for stimulation. I'm there to add value. I'm there to give back.
Mm.
And you're right. I mean, arts, church, charity, that's important. I'm on
Mm.
a board in Mitsui, of Mitsui in Japan,
Mm.
and I mean that's a fantastic role because that stretches me. They operate in 68 countries, and they're a true conglomerate.
Mm.
They're into anything and everything you could imagine on planet Earth, and that stretches my thinking, which is a good thing.
Mm.
And I've been on that board for 8 years.
Mm. Yeah, that's one that you watch the space, and it could be related to these new energies and
Hmm.
hydrogen, especially with Japan as well. Um, so perhaps just to finish, we'll do three more questions, and these are more in relation to advice for some of the members. One of the in one of your interviews, you mentioned a principle of taking some calculated risks in your career. And you've touched on it a little bit, but especially early, pushing the boundaries a little of your role. And
Hmm.
our members are mainly students or recent graduates who are fighting tooth and nail in a very competitive job market
Yeah,
today,
sure.
in these, accounting firms or law firms or even engineering firms. Would you advise them to take some risks? Or what do you mean by that, taking some risks?
Well, business is all about taking risks, taking managed risks. If you didn't believe in taking a risk as a business, then you should just put your money in the bank and get the bank rate of interest. Of course, no, you want to get a greater return than that. So, as a business person, you're actually trained to look at risk and how you manage and how you mitigate, how you ensure that if the worst happens, then the damage is small. I'm a great believer that opportunity knocks but once. Now that's a risky strategy because you're stepping into the unknown. Um, you could hope that with somebody asking you to consider a role or a move or whatever, well then you would hope that that person has sort of assessed your ability and your skills and experience and your intelligence and
mm,
use that to put you forward. But as I say, I'm a great believer that, you know, I transferred over to Perth. I'd never been to Perth. Um, and as it turns out, I've been here now since 1994
mm,
with a stay in Brisbane, which I'd never lived in, and London, which I'd never lived in. So, I mean, it is about taking risks. I mean, to me, the worst thing when you move into a new role is the first 5 weeks. Everything's new. It's all coming on you, and people expect you to have the answers and what have you. After about 5 weeks, it all just fits into place, it falls into place,
mm,
and you actually know what you're doing, and you're comfortable with what you're doing, and you know who you can trust in an organisation, who you can rely on. But yeah, the first 5 weeks can be hell.
mm. Okay. What about if you were studying today? Would you have any advice on the sort of courses or degrees or even extracurricular experiences that students should seek out to be most relevant in the work environment in the future?
Extracurricular to me, I would recommend that people look at joining a not-for-profit board, whether it's a sports board, an arts board, church board, school board, you name it.
Mm,
Because when you first join an organisation, you get a narrow window looking at an organisation, and you don't actually understand how it all comes together. You don't necessarily get to see the P&L or the balance sheet. You don't necessarily get to see the HR operations or the marketing strategy or whatever. But in these smaller organisations, you get to see everything, and you get to see how, in a smaller way, how it all fits together. Um, I think no matter what course you're going to do, you're going to add value because university is actually teaching you how to think.
mm,
It's yes, working in a certain area, and okay, law, that's highly specific to studying the law. But if you look at the very bright sort of barristers and solicitors and King's Counsel, they've moved way beyond the textbooks in terms of interpreting the law, in interpreting what was intended in a case or whatever.
mm,
Um,
mm,
but yeah, I mean, to me, I mean, you could say cyber, you could say with an aging population, medicine, you could say science in relation to technology and the way that the world is advancing. But to me, as you move through an organization, you actually use less and less of the material that you learnt at university.
mm,
It's sort of a stepping stone, if you like. It gains you access, but then it's your own sort of intelligence and your own skills that actually get you there.
mm. And you've touched on you've touched on this, I think. But say if you were a recent graduate, then, so say if you were sitting in a junior role or a senior analyst role at KPMG or
Hmm.
ANZ Bank or
Hmm.
similar in your twenties, what advice would you give to best set your career up? Would you prioritise more study post university, travel, taking those overseas stints for work, or OE, or these non-for-profit boards like you mentioned?
I mean, all of the things that you mentioned actually sort of develop your skills and your
Mm,
knowledge and your experience. Um, I mean, you need to be careful. I mean, I was fortunate that General Motors sent me to their university in the US. I'd only graduated 2 years earlier, and they threw me into an MBA type course, which was a 5 year course, and they threw me into the fifth year, the final year. So that the people studying were actually older than I was, uh,
mm,
but it was fantastic in terms of understanding
mm,
how a business actually operates. And I worked at Buick,
mm,
so half the time was at the university, half the time was was actually in the business, sort of seeing how the theory sort of came to pass.
And
Um,
so,
yeah,
I,
I mean, I come back to the points I made earlier about adding value.
mm, mm,
I mean that the best way to get on is to actually add value and be valued. And people, I mean, I very naughtily say, well, nobody gets promoted until they show the skills of the job that they're moving into. Now that's totally unfair because you don't get paid to do your boss's job. But but if you want to get on, you better be building those skills and you ought to be showing those skills. I mean, at GM once, I I I was promoted and it was two hops. So that one minute I was reporting to my boss, the next minute my boss was reporting to me. How's that, eh?
yeah, fantastic. I think the other comment is the value, add value, be valued. And the other comment you made, Sam, was opportunity knocks once,
Yes,
and being prepared to, as you said, go to Perth. You'd never lived in Perth. Go
yes.
to, yeah, take the opportunity that presented.
I mean, seriously scary, but if you want to move on, if you want to be promoted, if you want more responsibility, if you want to get paid more, then you do have to take those sort of calculated risks. And you've got to
Mm,
trust the organisation that the organisation actually, want you to succeed in that role.
mm. Okay. Well, I think you've given a really, marvelous set of advice there, Sam. And this is going to be great for the students, the young professionals, and even people who are well into their career, like myself. There's you've given a masterclass there. Thanks very much.
James, it's my pleasure. And good luck to you
Okay.
all.